Do you know your constitutional rights? Our founding fathers died to give every American citizen freedom of speech, due process, freedom of assembly, and the freedom to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Rise, stand tall, be bold, and be grateful for your American heritage. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave, where everything is possible. And we are the people.
Well, they believe every person has unique gifts that enable them to realize their American dream. This amazing potential of every individual to contribute to society is why they elevate the voices of grassroots activists in all 50 states. With a staff and passionate grassroots activists that come from all different backgrounds and walks of life, they are united by a steadfast belief in the power of the individual. They join together to tackle our country's biggest challenges, and they are committed to working with anyone to get things done. They are none other than Americans for Prosperity. Today, I have the Pennsylvania State Director, Ashley Klingensmith, on to discuss the dynamics of this unique organization and the shocking state of affairs in America today. She has been on staff with Pennsylvania since 2014. She is a Pittsburgh native and a law school graduate from Duquesne University. Ashley was chosen as one of the 9 individuals of the inaugural class of champions at the Americans for Prosperity Foundation in December 2016. It's my pleasure to welcome you today, Ashley.
It's so wonderful to be with you. Thanks so much for having us and providing this great platform.
Oh, what a great joy. And with that, I'm going to ask you some great questions about this organization that I think all viewers should be well informed about. It's a wonderful organization that's doing great things in the community. So, and it is an election year, so it's pretty important. What exactly is Americans for Prosperity in your definition?
Absolutely. So we are the nation's premier nonpartisan, nonprofit, grassroots organization that works every single day to scale the voice of citizens, everyday citizens, to be the principal change agents in public policy discussions. And you mentioned politics. Look, good policy makes good politics and vice versa. And so there is definitely opportunities and inflection points in certain political cycles where we're asking folks to also scale their voice in the political context. But absolutely, we're working to make sure that the everyday hardworking taxpayer is an interest that the guys and gals under state capitol domes and the dome in DC just cannot ignore.
Well said, well said. Now, what are your top objectives in the Commonwealth and in Congress? Because it is an election year, as we said.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll tell you, in Pennsylvania, on the policy front, our number one priority is getting the Taxpayer Protection Act passed. And what is so neat is it is a constitutional amendment. So it doesn't even need to go to our governor. It just needs to go through the House and the Senate in 2 consecutive sessions, and then it would go on the ballot for the people of Pennsylvania to weigh in on. But essentially, what it would do is finally place guardrails on state spending in budget cycles, which we think is so imperative and so very critical because every year we've got a rising budget with fewer people to pay that note because in Pennsylvania we have got an outbound migration problem. So these guys need to put some self-restraints on the way they do business, and the Taxpayer Protection Act is a great way to do that. And so it's already out of committee in the House. And so we are continuing to work on that. And then I'll tell you at the federal level, we know that we have got to work to unleash energy abundance in America. We need to increase domestic energy production so that we can have a greater shot at being able to go to the gas station, fill up our car and still be able to go get groceries. And so at the federal level, we're working on something called the Strategic Response Production Act. And it is sponsored in the Senate by Senator John Barrasso and in the House by Representative McMorris Rogers. And essentially, what that would do prohibit the Secretary of Energy really from tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve for reasons outside of a severe energy supply interruption until the Secretary of the Interior would issue a plan to increase oil and gas production on federal lands and in federal waters. And so for us, it's a no brainer. We're working every day to amass more co sponsors of that critical legislation because right now we've got an administration that is not helping us out too much.
Understood. Yes. And even cutting the Keystone Pipeline, and I interviewed Senator Doug Mastriano on the show as well. And he spoke to the importance of energy independence. And
Yes,
in Pennsylvania, we actually have the ability to attain that. We just had poor leadership, right?
absolutely.
So I'm really grateful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for your work in this area.
Our pleasure.
Now, can you talk about your True Cost initiative? That's getting so much media attention lately for the gas price drop events you're hosting across the nation. So, what are you guys doing? You're filling up people's gas tanks here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to tell you, we have just eclipsed, I believe, over 70 of these events. And so here in Pennsylvania, we have had three, yes, 76 events to be clear. Here in PA, we've had three. They've all been in southwestern Pennsylvania. But at the beginning of August, and stay tuned, we'll be on the other side of the Commonwealth. And essentially, what we're doing is for a couple of hours, we're partnering with a gas station, mostly independently owned places, to lower the price per gallon to $2.38, which was the price it was the day President Biden took office. And so, what we are doing right in line with all of the hundreds of folks that are wanting to be the recipient of one of those golden tickets to be able to get their reduced gas that day is we're talking with them about our True Cost of Washington campaign. We are connecting them with the fact that if they are seeing their paycheck not stretched as much as it typically used to be, they are not alone. That we are right now suffering from a 40-year high inflation. It is costing the average American family about $430 extra per month, and that the wasteful spending and burdensome regulations in DC are what is the source of the rising costs. And so we're connecting them, with those facts and then with solutions. And we're saying, listen, we can unleash energy abundance, we can end wasteful Washington spending, and we can certainly ignite innovation, but we've got to put pressure on members to act. So right there, as they're pumping gas, we're having them sign a letter. It's going right to the inbox of their member of Congress, 2 U.S. senators, and then we are giving them a little bit of relief in their week.
Oh, that's great. That's a great initiative. Thank you. Thank you for all that you guys do in the community. It's really appreciated. That's great to hear, actually.
I'll tell you, we have equal parts, heartbreaking stories to compelling stories that we hear when folks, pull up to the pump and we're standing there to try to capture that story. People are struggling right now, and for those in Washington that are making far more than we do, and disconnected from what folks are going through in the district, it is really quite sobering. And so it's been our pleasure to be able to meet these folks and then ultimately, give them a channel to scale their voice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think everybody needs a channel to scale their voice at this time. And America is definitely sick and she needs healing. And this is a
Yes.
great time to come back and use our voice as a platform to get things done because we are seeing some very awful things. And, we do have a 40-year high
Mm.
inflation right now, and I'll address that in a moment as well.
Yes. Yes.
Now, politically, what is your involvement in this PA cycle, or in PA this cycle, I should say? So, we have an election, we have midterms coming up. So, where do you stand?
Absolutely. So, taking off my Americans for Prosperity hat and putting on my hat as senior advisor with our political action committee, Americans for Prosperity Action, we have two very key races that we are working on in the Commonwealth. One is, of course, for United States Senate. We have endorsed Dr. Mehmet Oz, and for the 17th congressional district, that's kind of in the northern North Hills, all the way over to the Ohio state line, over to Beaver County, the 17th congressional district. And so we have endorsed Jeremy Schaefer in that race. It is going to be an open seat, just as our U.S. Senate seat is. Senator Pat Toomey is retiring, and so this is an open seat. So, we have endorsed both of these gentlemen. Dr. Oz has made a career of empowering folks to take control of their health. He is someone that believes strongly in the need to scale the size and scope of DC down. And so we know that he is going to be a vote against any more of this out of control, reckless spending. And as we visit people on their doorsteps, citizen contact is paramount to accompany our endorsements. It's what we do best. And as we're standing on folks' doorsteps, talking with them about the opportunities that would be afforded to Keystone State residents with a Senator Oz, we're reminding them that there is $700 billion in unspent COVID relief funds. Yet President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, Senator Schumer all want more spending. We're talking trillions in more spending. Oz is going to oppose that. We think that is a critical check in the Senate. And then as far as Jeremy Schaefer goes for House in the 17th congressional district, we're reminding folks that as a Ross Township commissioner, he has never voted to raise taxes. He has a track record of being a taxpayer advocate. And those sort of folks that have that record that we can count on and point to are exactly the kind of candidates that we are getting behind this cycle.
Okay, great. Yes. And I think it's really important for everybody to get out there and vote. Okay, because right now we do have a printing money problem in Washington, D.C. So we're printing money, going on a spending spree, and then weaponizing the IRS to pay back, as Sean Hannity said. Right. And this becomes a big problem. And just as somebody with a background in economics, printing money always leads to inflation. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So many voters are misled to believe that we're experiencing inflation because of the pandemic. Sure, we do have supply chain shortages, but a large bulk of the problem and the other component is the printing of money. And again,
Yes.
that's not only leading to inflation, but increasing the national debt, which I think is now 127% of GDP, right? I think it's about
Hmm.
27
Hmm.
trillion now,
Hmm.
and GDP is just around 23 trillion. So how they don't see these numbers and how these things don't phase them, a certain group of people, is beyond me. And this is very, very important, again, that every American has a voice. And this is a voting year. So we must get out there and do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Now, how can folks get more involved with their local chapter of Americans for Prosperity?
Great question. So we have 35 state chapters across the nation. And the best way to get plugged in is just to visit our website, americansforprosperity.org. And there is a contact us form. If you fill that out, someone from your local chapter is going to ping you, I can promise, straight away. And so that's the best way. But every one of our chapters also has a robust Facebook page. Almost all of them have Twitter pages as well, and many also have a presence on Instagram. And so there are so many ways to connect with us. I know our team monitors our social pages just about hourly, and we do pump out quite a bit of content, and it is always accompanied with a way to act, because at the end of the day, like, we are not a white paper policy shop. We are the doers, and we are the folks that believe so strongly in the power of grassroots lobbying. It is, there is an individual representing any number of special interests up on the Hill, both in Harrisburg and in Washington. But when we go to the Hill, we're accompanied by thousands of voices because you took action on any one of those things we posted or shared. So be sure americansforprosperity.org, and you can also visit action.americansforprosperity.com and find a lot of great contact official letters, petitions to sign, pledges that you're going to vote. And so we always encourage folks to visit that as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great news. Yes. And I encourage everybody to get involved. This is about the American dream. I've always been a huge believer in the American dream and its potential for each one of us. We all bring individual, unique talents and gifts, the Bible says. And in America, we can definitely express those freely and maximize our potential from them like
Yeah.
no other place in the world. So certainly join on board, everybody who's out there watching, and just lend a helping hand. All right. Well, my last question for you, Ashley. What do you think will happen in 2024 with the elections?
Gosh, that is such a great question. I can tell you that I sit here and just hope and pray for more checks and balances, more bottom up solutions, to see a Congress elected that is actually listening to the people and, making policy based on our wants and needs instead of their choice select pet projects. I think you've seen just this past week, Pete Buttigieg, President Biden, talking about how great they're doing on their priorities, while Americans literally sometimes cannot afford both gas and groceries right now. They're making a choice between either or. And so, look, my hope is for a selection of, quality candidates where there is a robust debate of ideas, and that and that kind of rises to the top, that we have those substantive discussions and we keep kind of some of the ugliness that we've recently become accustomed to at bay and really duke it out on the ideas. Because at the end of the day, politicians aren't going to save us, but good policy can, and it can course correct and get us back on the right track.
Right, right. And we just had some failed leadership ever since 2020. And it has been very devastating in some ways, but I do believe in hope. I believe in restoration. I believe in
Absolutely.
repair, rejuvenation, all the great R's of the Bible again. And,
Yeah.
and I just pray that God will restore our land. And again, it comes down to voting for the right people who are in sync with the people, right? Because it's government for the people, by the people. And I think it's so
Absolutely.
critical for people, like you even said, to get educated on the Constitution. What are the Bill of Rights, right?
Yes.
And what are we really doing here? How are we functioning? Okay. And are we voting for people who print money? Are we voting for people who cause inflation where you can't afford groceries and gas at the same time? And yes, we did have the most robust economy during the Trump administration, just a few years earlier, with very low unemployment, a strong dollar, and we had negative inflation. We had deflation in some cases.
Yep.
I
Yep.
believe gas and oil and gas is now 300%, but in his administration, it was minus 2.3%. If you look at the consumer price index, which is actually overstated to begin with. So real inflation numbers are actually higher than the CPI. So again, we've been through a lot. And look, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us Americans for Prosperity. Very, very important that everybody should support and live out their American dream. Join this wonderful organization, lend a hand, get out there, start campaigning, do whatever it takes at a grassroots level, and just go to their website and see what you can find. Any closing thoughts, Ashley?
I just want to leave folks with a direct line to us. The best email for us is just infopa at AFP, as in Americans for Prosperity, HQ, as in headquarters.org. We check that inbox regularly, on the hour, weekdays, weekends. And so please let us know what we can do for you. If you want a policy position on a given piece of legislation, all the way to saying, hey, I want to knock some doors. How can I do that? We are here to help and partner with you. And we are just so grateful for that partnership. You mentioned at the top of our time together that we will work with anyone to do good and no one to do harm. That is a mantra of Frederick Douglass's that we live by and live out. And so it would just be such an honor to hear from you and be able to work alongside you.
Amen. Ashley Klingensmith, Americans for Prosperity. All right, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and we will catch you next week.